Hey guys, so today I want to go ahead and talk about how to maximize your fuel efficiency in the 2015 Hyundai Elantra, or this particular generation. As many of you know, this particular generation Elantra had a lot of issues with the gas mileage ratings, especially back in 2011-2012 when they first came out. Hyundai actually had rated this car at 31 in the city and 40 on the highway, I think, and ultimately people were getting a lot less, so they were pretty pissed off. Now, Hyundai did actually reimburse many people for their fuel, however, essentially they didn't really solve the problem. Now, the car was retested, and the new ratings are about 28 in the city and 38 on the highway, which is relatively fair. So, how ultimately do you get these numbers? Because it seems that no matter how efficiently you drive, no matter how light you are on the gas pedal, you somehow can never reach those specific ratings. So how specifically do they do it? Well, the first thing is, if you notice how I'm accelerating, I'm not accelerating very fast. Now, as you can see, the transmission is still shifting around 2,000 to 2,500 RPMs, and this specific vehicle, that seems to work and get the max efficiency out of it. Now, mind you, am I always driving like this? No, I would piss a lot of people off. But ultimately, if that's what you can do, try to accelerate really lightly. Now, obviously, it's very obvious, but certain cars have different RPM ranges where they're most efficient. This particular model seems to be more efficient around 2,000 RPMs. So, if on the highway you're driving about 65, 70 miles an hour, you're going to be getting actually really good efficiency, because ultimately that's where the car kind of rests in its high efficiency zone. So I definitely think that, for one, keeping it around 2,000 RPMs in this particular car is good. The next thing I want to recommend is keep up with your alignments. Before, when this car had was off by a little bit and kept pulling to the left, I noticed my gas mileage, I could not cross 26 miles a gallon. Now, mind you, on the highway I was still able to, but at the same time, I was still getting less gas mileage than I am now. Now that my alignment's pretty much spot on, I've hit a few potholes here and there. Vegas sucks, it's turning into Los Angeles. The gas mileage has gotten a lot better. So if you keep up with your alignment, you're reducing the amount of drag on your tires, and you're also keeping the suspension aligned. So in that, you're saving fuel, saving resistance, and ultimately saving wear and tear on your tires and your suspension, for that matter. So keeping up with your alignment is very important. The next thing is try to avoid braking hard. Now, mind you, in my last video, my progressive beeper went off because I have that snapshot thing, and someone stopped in front of me very abruptly. Try to minimize that as much as possible. You definitely want to stay 1 or 2 car lengths away from the person in front of you. That's pretty obvious. You were taught that in driver's ed, but ultimately people don't follow that, and they end up braking ridiculously hard, wearing down their brakes, putting strain on the transmission, and also just putting strain on basically everything, wearing it out faster. That will also suck down some fuel. The next thing is this is pretty obvious, keep up with your maintenance. This particular vehicle requires an oil change around every 4,000 miles, so I'm not very complacent on that. I personally like to keep my cars lasting a long time, so I do take it in for its regular maintenance. Very rarely will I ever go over on an oil change. Now, mind you, some people, they do go over on oil changes, and most of the time it's synthetic oil, so it's okay, it won't break down as fast. But again, you are running the risk of losing gas mileage and putting unnecessary wear on the engine. Remember that your oil has to remain a certain viscosity. If it doesn't, it starts to clump up. You really are going to starve your mechanical components, especially on cold start when the oil is thicker anyway. 80% of your engine wear is actually from cold start, so that's why you're not supposed to rev it high. You're supposed to let it warm up just a little bit. Now, mind you, in fuel-injected cars, you don't have to let it warm up in the parking lot. You can drive it. You just have to be easy on it. So that's the next thing. Basically, the last thing is also pretty obvious, is don't drive too quickly on the city streets. City streets are where you really want to follow the speed limit, because for one, obviously there's more cops, but two, honestly, if you have to keep braking on and off, going to stoplights and stuff like that, you want to be as easy on the car as possible, because the city is where a lot of wear and tear happens on your vehicle. On the highway, your transmission's not shifting, your torque converter is 1-to-1 with the engine. Engine is still spinning, yes, and it's wearing a little bit, but at the same time, most of your highway is just literally just cruising. It's like taking a walk versus constantly sprinting, slowing down, and ultimately that's what your car does in the city. So if you can minimize the harsh accelerations and the actual harsh braking, then definitely that's one of the biggest ones, and probably one of the most obvious, because again, the harder you drive your car, the more wear you put on it, and ultimately less efficient it's going to start running as more wear is added. You also are going to lose some horsepower as your engine goes. So again, that's another reason why you're going to start losing gas mileage, is because as your engine starts to wear, you lose a little bit of horsepower, especially if you start leaking through your head gasket. I noticed that like my compression was awful when my head gasket started leaking on my old car. So that's one thing. But as you can see here again, I think I've already mentioned this, you want to accelerate slowly, keep it around 2,000 to 2,500. If your car is a V6 or a V8, it'll definitely shift earlier. This one's a little 4-cylinder, so again, not as able to keep the RPMs low. Even though highly unreliable, but very efficient, is the CVT transmission. If you are looking for an efficient vehicle, I don't necessarily recommend it, but if you are looking for efficiency, the CVT is where it's at, because stick shifts now, even though they do get better mileage than automatics, they are not putting 7, 8, 9 gears in these stick shifts. I think Porsche has a 7-speed manual, but that's the highest they go. So the newer automatics are definitely getting ahead of the manuals, even though it's way more fun to drive a manual. But, you know, that's one thing to consider as well. If you're looking for a car with really good gas mileage, it's probably going to be a CVT. Now, mind you, it won't last you as long. But if you're just looking for something like a throwaway car, or something to get you by until you get your nice powerful V8, then CVT is where to go. You'll save a lot of money on gas. That's basically it, though. I don't really have anything else for you. In the meantime, I'm gonna go to bed. I literally worked a 14-hour shift, slept until 6 p.m. It is like 3 a.m. and I have school tomorrow, but I literally just cannot get myself back on track. So I'm actually gonna try to go to sleep now. But if any of you guys have any questions, let me know, and I will go ahead and catch you later. Have a good one.